we have a lot of questions on this. Why? Why is Challah the first mitzvah they begin doing when they enter the land? And we might already have started to have the understanding because we've been talking about Challah. Why was it given now, at this moment? Okay? Because it's not going to be going into effect for another 39 years. So if we have that question about the libations, we said because Hashem is infusing the new hope to the people. Right? He did that. So why is this now? Why is this now? You could say he's just underlining the hope to the people. Maybe. That could be part of the answer, but it's not enough. Because the Torah is not repetitious. So why 39 years before they need to do it is this being told? And why is it specifically belonging to the women? This is a connection from the Garden of Eden. Now the truth is, men could do the mitzvah of Challah for sure. And as a matter of fact, our sages say that every man at least once a year should do it, and if he hasn't done it, he should do it before Yom Kippur. And why should he do it before Yom Kippur? Because of all the ideas that we have discussed about Challah, and all the ideas that we will continue to discuss about Challah, and we will see why this is such a powerful tool to do our spiritual work in our physical body. Okay? But the point is that we still say, why now? So, what do we say? We said what we just said. The reason why it's now is because it's like Hashem, as it were, winking at the women. Because we said the men fell in the sin of the spies. Because why? Because they got confused again between the mission that they want and the mission that Hashem wants. And in the Garden of Eden, it was man and woman, started by woman, and then man following, and they got confused that way, all unraveling from communication problems, which we said is a big part of our work. And now we have an opportunity again, because we said that everything that happened from then, and all the generations that followed, and the crisis, and the patriarchs, and going down to Egypt, and becoming a nation, and then we said the nation of Israel going into the land was going to again, what? Just like mankind has to activate the creation, we have to reactivate the mission. So the spies were clinging to a human invention of spirituality, right? Because they were saying this is spirituality, And the truth is, it's much easier to be spiritual on a hilltop because you don't have to deal with people or any challenges. You're all by yourself. Nobody's making noise. You could do your meditation all you want when you want, right? Nobody's challenging you. Nobody's having expectations from you. Nobody's hurting you. So that's not Hashem's idea of spiritual work. That's an escape. It's a spiritual escape. And so that's, in a way, what the spies were doing. They wanted to be on that mountaintop, and so that's what they got. We said the vengeful biblical God in all these illustrations is not a Jewish idea at all, and they wanted to be in the desert with all those props, those spiritual props, and that's where they stayed, because it's where they wanted to be. So the women they were ready to take up where they left off in the Garden of Eden, and Hashem is sort of giving them this loving wink and saying, I see. Because Challah, as we said from the beginning, we said, Ha'adam l'nefesh chaya is the imprint of the idea of what we are supposed to be for the universe, and all the secrets of this mitzvah of taking the material and sanctifying it, because it could just be material, it could just be a bunch of nothing, and instead it becomes a bunch of something, and this is through our action. So the women were ready to do this. They were ready to roll up their sleeves and do the physical work that was needed to do. And that is why the mitzvah of Challah has to be started, because the day they crossed over into the land, the manna stopped falling. Shouldn't Hashem have given them like a week to unpack? Like grace period to just get used to everything? No. The minute they got into the land, the manna stopped falling, and they were required to begin to make spirituality happen with the tools at their disposal that Hashem chose to give them, which are all physical tools. Okay? And that is what it was, and that's the secret of Challah, and that is why women get it specifically, because they really rose to the occasion, because rectification is about rising to your potential, but after you mess up, Because rising to potential is a great thing. It's a wonderful thing, and maybe Hashem's will that we don't mess up and we don't fall, but that's part of the human condition. And that's not for naught, because Hashem invests us with the ability, to fall and get back on the bicycle, and fall and get back on the bicycle. And the harder we work toward the relationship, the more precious and the higher we go. And that's why in Torah idea, it's not like there is like the end, and then there's the path, and the path is, okay, let's just get through this path to get to the end. That is not Torah. The idea of Torah is that the path is so valuable, that the effort that you put in is so valuable, the true will to connect with Hashem as He wants us to is so valuable that is the goal. Do you understand? Now, Hashem never measures us at the end of our life, okay, sorry, you worked hard, but no cigar. No. It's the effort that we put in. And that is the human experience. That is the human experience. A human has to be fallible by the very definition. Okay, so now we go on. So we see they got when you go into the land, and that's after everything, and that was investing new hope, and now the mitzvah of Chala, given 39 years earlier, just to wink and say you are on the right track, that's exactly right, that's what you're supposed to do. And what's the next thing? Very same one, exactly same chapter, 1540, tzitzit. So, and why? So that you will remember, so that you will see. Who did not see and who did not remember? The men. They did not see and not remember. So Hashem is now giving them a beautiful tool to get back to that. Did you ever not see something from far away and you scrunch up a little so you could like pinpoint and get that vision clear? On one, tzitzit are that idea. It's a spiritual tying to place. It's the pipeline so that you don't lose focus. It's all those things. And that's specifically why at this juncture, that's what the purpose of tzitzit are, so that you will see, and though they will hear, some of you have heard me mention this before, that's why I find it tremendously tragic and somewhat misinformed when women wear it, because it's like wearing a hearing aid when you don't need it, and that does not feel so good. This is a spiritual tool. And we are given the tools that we need to advance spiritually. And the women were in a different place, so they need different things, and the men need different things. And this is why it's all right here. We have the spies, we have the devastation, we have Hashem restoring hope. We have Hashem saying, yes, Chala is the theme, and we have Hashem saying, get back on track. Here the tzitzit. You could see clearly. You could not get unglued. You're tied into place, and you go forward. And now the people, because they have to pick up the pieces and go forward, they have 39 more years, and they need to make good use of this time. Okay, So what we're saying is that Hashem is constantly providing us active ways to elevate our environment according to our need, right? From the very beginning of time, and every person with a tailor-made mission will get different things in their life, different challenges in their life that are going to help them do that which they need to do. So, see, in the desert it was all very theoretical, but going into the land it became actual, and that's why the man had to stop, because the whole goal of humanity wasn't for us to be passive. It wasn't for us to be passive. It wasn't for us to be pawns. It wasn't us to be bystanders. It was us taking an active role in activating the creation. And the challah is a symbol of what's inside the dough. What is inside our physical reality that we could just perceive however we choose to perceive it. And that's why challah replaces the manna. It's an absolute replacement. And it's the same day. It's actually the same day on the calendar. This stops, that starts. As soon as we began, we began. So we are responsible, if we take this into daily living, to invest spirituality into ourselves, our family, our surroundings, our opportunities, our relationships, and that is the hidden universal idea of what challah is all about. And not only that, challah is ingested. It's ingested. And let's go back to the Eitz Hada'at, the tree of knowledge. It was ingested. It was a confused reality of spirituality and knowing and consciousness that became all befuddled. And mankind, being the Chal of the universe, as we discussed, having to recreate that clarity through ingesting, right? This is spiritual concepts. We're not talking here fairy tales, okay? The idea of what our true mission in this world actually is. So, and it's really, really interesting because challah is tied up with food, and we think of food as a very, very physical thing. But then when we say, wait, 1 minute, if a person goes without food for a couple of weeks, that person's, God forbid, going to die. But what does that have to do with my soul? The soul doesn't need food. Why should the soul leave without food? That's interesting. It's interesting, very, very interesting, because this shows us that there is spiritual work in food. And this is, going to some of the commandments that, the nation of Israel has taken upon themselves, and why Hashem has spent so much time in saying you are what you eat, because they are spiritual. Just like we believe it, all the women in the gym believe it, you are what you eat, but why don't we believe it spiritually? And, this is just interesting food for thought. Okay, so the idea is that Hashem is telling us that there is spirituality in our existence when we bother to look for it. Because if we don't bother to look for it, we're just going to see a bowl of dough. And we see this all the time. So we have to look for it, uncover it, access it, and utilize it. Otherwise, it's just a bunch of nothing. And that's every opportunity in our lives. All our relationships, our experiences, the challenges, the blessings that Hashem gives us. Just like the spies, and they saw the fruit, they didn't see it as a blessing. In other words, we are the ones who play the mind games with ourselves, and this is all coming from the distorted knowledge of the tree of knowledge. So, we have... And again, it's all dormant, like we pointed out in the Genesis verse, how everything is dormant until we activate this potential. Otherwise, it is all a bunch of nothing if we don't activate it. So, and we still need to activate it. That's the plan. The plan, Hashem doesn't change His plans. This is the plan. This is the rectification. This is how we move forward to becoming the maximum of what we can do, to bear our fruits. And so, if we look at the word chala in Hebrew, it means chal with Hashem. Hashem rests here. That's what it literally means. Hashem rests here. That means godly potential rests here. That means, if we do that which we need to do, we can see that. We could begin to acknowledge that. And you think how strange this is, because when you just look at the wheat for a minute, we look at this, we took this wheat, what does Hashem want from us? We were in the field, and we left the corners for the poor and the things that fell and we forgot about. And then we gave the truma to the Kohen and the priest, and then we did the tithing. We did so much to acknowledge and say thank you to Hashem and to realize where it's all from. What does Hashem want from us? And now we go into our house, we're in our cozy little space, we're about to pop it in the oven, and again, it's very, very interesting, and the truth is that is the hardest place to do this work, is in the coziness of your own environment, because it's our safe place. This is mine. Out there on the street, I'm vulnerable. In the field, I'm vulnerable. It might not be really my place, or I share it, or I feel the elements more, but this is mine, the sweat of my brow, and I've done this, and it's a natural thing, and it is a gift from Hashem, and we have to be thankful for it, we have to enjoy it. But it's the place that the sorting of what our relationship with Hashem is most acute and most challenged. And not only about saying thank you for the bounty that He gives us, but for the relationships, right? I said this before. It's so significant when you watch how a person will talk to a stranger, and then how they will come home and talk to their spouse or their child. And that's where the test is. Inside these little parameters, not out there. And that's why it has to be, the test is being clarified and fine-tuned and clarified and fine-tuned, and you have to bring it home. If you don't bring it home, it's really not worth that much. And we take the word in Hebrew, lechem. Lechem means bread. And lechem, with different vowels, it spells lacham, thought. Okay? Because we have to struggle to utilize, bread is only as a symbol of the material in this world, right? We have to struggle for that, to work toward what that could be, what Hashem intended it to be. And then we take those same letters. We said the Hebrew language is very, very rich because each letter gives us secrets of Hashem's divine wisdom. It's not like other languages. And then we have machal with the same letters scrambled. Machal means forgave. What forgiveness for what? In other words, for coming out on top after, moving out of track and coming back into track. And then we have another word spelled with those same letters in the same order as machal for forgiveness, which means mechol. Mechol is a dance of joy. Because that's where true joy comes. Think about it. When you know that when you get to the right address, when you've struggled for something, when you've worked toward something, that brings you to a place of fulfillment, joy. Now, when we look at Numbers 15, which was about the challah, I'm going to read it in English. 17, 18 goes, even in the English, even though we're going to miss a lot, even in the English, we are going to see what I'm about to say. Okay? So, Hashem spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when you come into the land which I bring you, it shall be that when you will eat of the bread of the land, you shall set aside a portion for Hashem. As the first of your kneading, you shall set aside a loaf as a portion, like the portion of the threshing floor, so you shall set it aside. From the first of your kneading, you shall give a portion to Hashem for your generations." Now, students of Torah already say, there's something very strange going on in these verses. The redundancy, the repetition, the heaviness of the verse opens us up to say there is tremendous depth of Torah wisdom here, that we know that this book is the shorthand that we take at a lecture. And the oral is the expounding on everything of the shorthand. So these are the kinds of verses, an example of a verse that says there is so much more happening here. Because the Torah, when it breaks its own rules, it does it in order to teach. So we have redundancy over and over again. I'm not going to go into all of it because it's really too much for now, but just to give you an idea, that the truma, it repeats the truma. Truma was the gift, it means a portion that was given to the priest, the Kohen. It is repeated here 6 times in various ways in these 2 verses. This is not done in Torah unless there's a reason. And the portion, the truma that was given to the Kohen was the piece, among other things, of challah that was taken off, was called a truma. When this was taken off and given to the Kohen, this portion. Okay? So we have this repeated 6 times. I think we understood it the first time. And it was repeated when you have the portion, and give it to the portion, the portion, the portion, the portion, the portion. And why is it repeated 6 times on one level? Remember I said I'm giving you one idea and there's tremendous depth. I'm not going to more than one idea for each thing. We're talking about, this is parallel to the 6 days of creation. The 6 days of creation, which each and every one was invested with potential that needs to be activated by man, which is symbolized by the truma that we take for the challah to give, which we take a material parameters, we invest it and we sanctify it and we redirect it towards something greater than self. It is self and it is that much more than self. Okay? So we see that truma also, if we break it down, it spells tarum hay. Raise up the hay, as it were, the name of Hashem. Raise up the hay. Again, what does that mean? Hashem doesn't need us to do anything because all of this that we are living in, this reality, is all about us and Hashem bestowing opportunity upon us. So what do you mean raise it out? It's for us because the Shekhinah, what is the Shekhinah? The Shekhinah is understanding an aspect of godliness that Hashem allows to rest with us based upon our actions. Okay, so the idea is lifting up, but what does that mean? Acknowledging, seeing, connecting with the Shekhinah, tarum, to raise up, hey, Hashem, as it were, to make this connection within the physical confines that He has placed us. He didn't place us here just to finish our days quickly. He placed us here to accomplish amazing things. So, we're not doomed. We are tremendously potential filled. And if we don't use that potential, again, that goes back to free choice. So, we connect who we are with the hidden face of Hashem in this reality. That is what we do. And what is very, and again, if we see that this is not about us, the very famous verse in the Torah in Exodus 25:8, it says, "Build me a sanctuary so that I will dwell among them." That's not proper grammar, but it is. Because Hashem doesn't need a building. Build me a sanctuary so I will dwell among them. Who's them? The people. In other words, doing different physical activities which Hashem tells us to do are tools that can access the spiritual in a physical domain. And so again, this is about us. And what's a very, very beautiful idea that we see in Torah is that the matriarchs were called the Shekhinah. They certainly weren't the Shekhinah. They were only Hashem as the Shekhinah, and nobody else was called the Shekhinah. Nobody else could be the Shekhinah. There's a very specific idea that they were given this nickname. Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah were given this nickname of Shekhinah. But we have to understand, what does that mean? Because nobody could be God. So what does this mean? It's a very deep idea. And just to touch upon this idea, it was the women, again, because we see what happened in the garden, and we see that the women began getting ready for this mission and were ready for it sooner than the men were able to be ready for the mission. And what is the idea of Shekhinah? The idea of Shekhinah is that Hashem invests Himself in the reality. And the women, which were represented, the representation of the women that paved the way for allowing Hashem to agree to do this through our actions, were the matriarchs. And so through what they did, they literally pulled the Shekhinah into their lives. And there's a tremendous idea about the tent of Sarah, and that's another whole thing. I'm sorry, because time is limited, my voice is going. So we're going to try to stay focused. But the tent of Sarah was a beautiful concept of, as it relates to Sarah and how it involved the women's mitzvot and elevating everything and bringing Hashem into the lives of their families and their surroundings through what they could be as women. And so when Yitzchak brings Rivka home in Genesis 24, it says he brought her to Sarah's tent. Now, the Torah doesn't give us extraneous information, because there were a lot of things going on with the people that lived, that were related about in the Tanakh, that were not recorded. Not every conversation was recorded, not every experience was recorded, not every fact was recorded. And this is because that which Hashem chose to record were the things that affect us moment by moment in our lives, and that are for us for all generations. So why do we need to know the address? How many tents did they have? And who cares what it was called? And what's going on? We have to take this idea and say there's always something to learn. Because what was going on there was that she continued the work that Rivka started, and indeed, it says that there were certain blessings that evaporated from their lives when Sarah left the world that came back into their lives when Rivka entered their lives. So it was a very fascinating idea. And if we take gematria for a minute, some of you may be familiar with gematria, the studying of the numerical value, the spirituality behind the numerical value of the letters. When we take bracha, which means blessing, and in the numerical value of the word bracha, blessing, is 227. And the numerical value of bayit, which is a home, is 412. And together you get 639. And in gematria, this spells out Eitz Hadat, the tree of knowledge, which is incredible. It's truly incredible. But a home the blessing in the home is the rectification for the tree of knowledge, and this is a tremendously powerful thought, powerful potential, powerful tool for each and every one of us to think about, the significant people and the way we run our lives in our most intimate fashion. And this, and the Talmud, actually says in Yevamot that a man that doesn't have a wife, it's really extreme. It says he has no joy, and he has no blessing, and he has no good, and it goes on and on and on about all these things without a wife. And we see the same idea in Numbers when it talks about the priestly blessing, that Hashem will illuminate his countenance upon us. And over there, the Medrash says that in order for this to be digested, remember we spoke about the digestion of the tree of knowledge, for this to be digested properly in the home for the man, he has to have a wife. So again, there's just some ideas here about how the spiritual work connects very, very deeply, and how women can do a lot of things, and women should do a lot of things, and I'm very into higher education and all this. Don't get me wrong, but there's something that is being robbed from womankind, and it's not only devastating to them, but it's devastating to society in general. And that means even if a woman would be the president of the United States of America, which would be fabulous, that which she does in the Oval Office will not shine a light to that which she can do in her own home. And so it doesn't have to be a contradiction. And in today's world, it's been made into a contradiction. And so many women are embarrassed to say they stay at home. And this just proves it. And in the enlightenment of women's rights, I've never yet heard a man that wanted to be a woman. I always say the women that want to be the man, but if it was really, truly equality, we would hear a lot of it going back and forth. It's just the idea of not to give up identity ever. In other words, be what you want, and that's great. Women didn't used to get university educations or the right to vote or all these things, and these are horrible things. The women's liberation movement started because there were true problems that were addressed in a very wrong way, but these were not Torah-created problems. And that's one of the very sad things that, people that don't know anything about Torah and women come to very, very foolish, sad conclusions. And all the problems that were created that women struggle with today were created outside Torah, totally, because if we go back to Torah, a woman is a very powerful player with a very significant role. Sorry for that station identification, but I have a captive audience here, and you. Okay, so I want to draw to a close, okay? It's brought down in several places in the oral tradition that Hashem created the world in the merit of Reshit. And it's brought down in different places, what is Reshit? And when we go to the first word of Torah, it says Bereshit. That's the first word of Torah, Bereshit, and it's translated, and it does mean in the beginning. But it means something else too. It means inside Reshit. Reshit being a noun. Inside Reshit. So according to this idea, the oral tradition explores different things which are called Reshit, and I'm not going to go through all of them right now. I'm going through the ones that connect to exactly what we're talking about. And it says, the world was created in the merit of Reshit. That means inside Reshit is the secret of why Hashem created the world. And it happens to be that the first fruits in Exodus 23 are called Reshit, and the tithes in Deuteronomy are called Reshit, and the Chala in the chapter that we're dealing with is called Reshit. So what does this mean? This just confuses us even more. You mean, in the merit of these relatively simple things is why the world is standing? And the answer is yes. Yes. Because it's, what do those things all symbolize? It all symbolizes taking a very confined material reality and investing it with tremendous purpose and sanctity, and saying that this is not just about me. This is about something much greater than me and much more powerful than me, and I could connect to that and be that through my actions. And it's about giving the best we have. We said Hashem created the universe to bestow, and what did he have to bestow? Only himself, because he gave the best of what he had. And so we bestow. That's part of our purpose. So all these mitzvot that I just talked about, the secret, one of the secrets is the bestowing, the seeing that this is not about me. It's beyond me as the focal point. And it's about going outside myself and about being able to do this with whatever I come in contact with, all my material reality, my material confines. And it's not for naught that Avraham was the Ish Chesed. He was the man of Chesed. He was the one who started bringing everything back on track. And right after everything went totally haywire, also Avram is there, and it's not for naught that he was there suddenly, and he was the Ish Chesed, the man of Chesed, because that was the prime purpose of the giving of being the executor in this world, responsible for partnering Hashem in creation and for acknowledging this responsibility. And so it wasn't that he was just a moral, upstanding person. That he certainly was, but it was about doing Hashem's will and bringing that back into focus. So Hashem directs us to recognize our own sanctity constantly, every day, who you meet, who you speak to on the phone, what you did wrong, what you did right, what you read in the newspaper. Hashem is constantly directing us to recognize our own sanctity and channel it through the life that we live in this world, not through a different life, not through a spiritual life, because then he wouldn't have put us here in the first place. We could be spiritual beings in a physical domain. So Hashem, our job is to get back to the original da'at, the Eitz HaDa'at that went muddled and that went cloudy. That's our job. And we do this through the theme of Chala. Chal Hashem. We said Hashem rests here, right through that theme that we have. And that means Hashem's presence rests on all and in all, but we have to activate it, like we pointed out in the very beginning of the Genesis accounting. So that means that there is nothing mundane about our lives. There are many, many people that believe that certain experiences and certain days and certain people are about our sanctified self, and the rest is regular. Automatic drive. But that is not Hashem's plan for us. That means everything we do can be special, can be beautiful, can be infused with godliness. And so if we look, this is such a beautiful psalm. It's one of my favorite psalms. Psalms 27, verse 13. King David tells us this. He says, "Lulei," at the end of the psalm, "Lulei hemanti l'rot betuv Hashem be'eretz hachayim." We always say, seeing is believing. But he is telling us believing is seeing. Lulei hemanti. Because I believed, I was able to see the goodness of Hashem in this living world. That means in this place of hiddenness, this place of confusion, this place of material, this place of consumption, this place of quote unquote, which not mundane, which seems mundane, if believing is seeing. Depends on how I use the eyes that Hashem gave me. Once I open up that perspective, then I can uncover the hidden face of Hashem. So what's very, very interesting, we've been talking about chala the whole time, but another word that shares the same root is chol. Chol actually means mundane. Isn't that cool? Because chol means mundane. The idea is that nothing is mundane. And it's up to us to invest it with what it can be. And then there's another word that has the same root. It's called holy. Holy is illness or weakness. And what is this? In a spiritual level, like spiritually, emotionally, physically, a weakness, which means sort of like stepping out of what we could be. And all this misalignment of the sanctity within the body. And holistic healers are very big on this, and there's a lot of truth to that, a tremendous amount of truth. So, chal, also another word with the same root, means sweet. And the sweetness of knowing that every nuance of our lives is totally laden with beauty and potential, and that we are active participants and not victims in this place that Hashem has placed us. And this is the sweetness. And Hashem is always showering upon us. Hashem never stops giving us good, only good. It's up to the vessels that we create to contain it. This is how we started. We started talking about vessels and Shvat. If we don't have the vessel to contain the goodness, we don't have the goodness. It's not that it's not coming. Where is that God? He doesn't exist. But again, it's all about getting what we do, reality mirroring our actions, cause and effect. So we have this potential to use our life, our bodies, our time, our capability in order to create these vessels, to create, this place. And Hashem trusts us to do so. It's such a beautiful thing. When a Jewish person wakes up in the morning, they say, before they get out of bed and start to think about all the list of woes, they say, Modeh ani lifanecha melechai v'kayam shehechazarta bi nishmati rabba emunatecha. Thanking Hashem for returning our soul to us. And how does it end? Rabba emunatecha. Great is your faith. Not our faith, your faith. Your faith, Hashem, in us. That you've given us another day, just do it again, to try over, to polish it up, to have new opportunities, because Hashem has faith in us. He gave us the opportunity to make choices, and ultimately it's only up to us. But He loves us, He trusts us, He's with us, and what does He trust us to do? He trusts us to use the soul that He breathed into us and into creation to breathe back out this beautiful sanctity and make this physical place a heavenly domain. And that's it. Thank you very, very much.